What's up, everyone? You're listening to WXSU. I'm Jonathan Lee, and this is my first show. I apologize for the delay or just all the music at the beginning. It took me a little while to get everything sorted out and figured out, but I'm here now, and my show is going to be on hockey because I'm a big hockey fan. So if you're a hockey fan too, then this is the place to be. I'm just going to talk about some stuff that we've seen around the NHL. Just different news. Obviously, preseason started this week, and the regular season's just around the corner. So let's get into it. First up, just some of the preseason stuff. I unfortunately have not been able to watch a lot of the preseason because I just got to college, so I don't have all the networks or the streaming networks yet downloaded, so I'm hoping to get those done for the regular season. But I did see that Utah's first preseason goal was they put in their own net, or it was an empty netter, which I just thought was hilarious. It's gonna be something it's gonna be a moment long remembered in a bad way for them. Of course, it was just preseason, but it's gonna be one of those funny moments for a lot of people, and just a little embarrassing for Utah. But I thought it was just funny. I will say, I think a lot of people overreact to preseason because, people go crazy when their team's doing really good, and people, get really upset or really stressed out when their team's doing really bad. Preseason could be an indicator of how the regular season will go, but there's plenty of times where it isn't. I'm pretty sure my Caps only won, one preseason game the year they went on to win the Stanley Cup, so it really is not an indicator. It could be an indicator, but oftentimes it's not an indicator of how the season will go. So I wouldn't stress over preseason, and at the same time, just because my team's doing well in preseason doesn't mean that I'd be going crazy. Of course, if they were expected to do well before the season, then I think that probably is a good sign, or that probably is a sign what's to come. But if the team is not supposed to be good this year and they're doing good in preseason, they might still surprise everyone, but I wouldn't start getting my hopes up yet just because of a good preseason. What else? Unfortunately, I think that's all I can really talk about with preseason. Or actually, I could go into some of the stuff I've seen my Caps do. They're 2-1. They're 1-2. Got a win against New Jersey the other night. Jacob Vrana got an assist. I was really excited about that. I'm really hoping he makes the team. He was always one of my favorites and still is. I'd love to see him back in Washington, so I'm really hoping he can make the team, and I'm really hoping he does well and can make the team and stay here for a while. It was the other night, of course. I once again could not watch the game, but it was pretty high scoring. I think it was 5-4 Caps. So I've got some hopes this year for this team, but we'll have to wait and see. Well, I guess that is everything I can talk about preseason. So I'm going to talk about some of the extensions that have happened. Recent extensions. First, the Red Wings re-signed Lucas Raymond, I think it was a week and a half ago, to an 8-year contract worth $8.07 million a year. I think that's an amazing deal for the Red Wings. He easily could have gone north of $9 million, but he could, I think 22 years old, and he's already a very good top line winger, so he could have gone north of $9 million, especially with the cap going up, but he went $8 million, and that's going to be, for 8 years as the cap goes up, I think this contract is going to be a steal, just like a lot of other young players getting signed. Really good move by the Red Wings. They also re-signed Sider for 7 years, $8.55 million a year, which is another great deal. Both W's by Stevie Y. Maybe the Yzer plant's back on. We'll see, but I think these are both great moves for Detroit. I think these deals are going to age really well. These are two players who are going to be stars in Detroit's future, big parts of their future. So I think this is a great move by them. We also saw the Penguins re-sign Sidney Crosby to a two-year contract worth $8.7 million a year. That one will not kick in until next season, but Crosby stays at the 8.7, matching his number 87. I think this is a great deal for Pittsburgh. Crosby's still a very elite player, very skilled. He's very valuable to the team, and I think that the 8.7 is a steal. He had 94 points this past year despite his age. He's going to his age 37 year, but even if he regresses a little bit, the 8.7 is he probably could have gone north of $10 million right now. So even if he starts to regress, he'll probably still be worth $8.7 million. And even if the contract turns out to be bad, it's not like Pittsburgh's going to be a contender anyway. So I think this is a great deal for Pittsburgh. Sorry, I'm just trying to think for a minute. Great deal for Pittsburgh, re-signing their star, and we'll see if they can still try and contend with him, or if their window really is shut, which I think it is. But they're going to keep trying as long as Sid's on the team. They're going to keep trying to win. So we'll see what happens. Next, the Utah Hockey Club re-signed Dylan Guenther to an 8-year deal worth $7 million a year, which I think is another great deal. He's 21 years old, I'm pretty sure, and had an amazing season last year, and he's showing a lot of promise. He's only going to get better at 21 years old. So once again, locking up your young star. Of course, there is a risk always attached to that, but it works out more times than not. Look what happened with Jack Hughes, Tim Stützle. So just lock up your young star, and usually it'll work out. So Utah obviously is trying to establish themselves, and the hockey club's trying to establish themselves in Utah. So this is going to be he's probably going to be a big part of their future. So I think this is another great deal. And then you got Cole Perfetti re-signed with the Jets, 2 years, $3.25 million AAV, which I think is a solid bridge deal. He's a solid middle six forward, or good second liner, but I think the money's good. Good bridge deal. Maybe I would have gone like 4 years with him, but I don't think there's any problems here. Just to me, it's a normal bridge deal for a player like him. And anyway, I'm going to get back to playing music, and I'll see you after the music's done. So before the music break, I guess you could call it, I was talking about Utah and how they had their, first they had their first goal scored on their own, or like their first goal was on their own net, and then they just re-signed one of their young players. But speaking of Utah, the Arizona Coyotes, we know they moved out of Arizona. The Arizona Coyotes no longer exist now, and it was reported by Knights PR that Vegas will be broadcasting games in Arizona, will be broadcasting their games in Arizona. The Vegas Golden Knights will be trying to get the Arizona fan base, which I know we all hockey fans like to hate on Vegas, but this you can't really blame them for. Arizona now no longer has a team, so they're going to try and get some of that fan base. Of course, the diehard Coyotes fans are probably going to root for Utah now, or maybe they're just hoping for hockey to return to Arizona. But maybe some people who are who start getting into hockey in Arizona now will root for Vegas, since that is their closest team. So it's, of course, a lot of people are upset about the Coyotes being gone. A lot of people really do not like Vegas, but you can't blame them for this. This is a smart move by them. They might as well. The Coyotes are no longer there, so they might as well try and get some of that fan base to get help grow their market, or help grow their fan base. So we'll see how many people start becoming Vegas fans in Arizona. Next, I want to talk about. It was reported by Mark Lazarus the other day that the Blackhawks are interested in Kirill Kaprizov in 2026 free agency, and Kaprizov has a mutual interest, which, as we know, Kaprizov is a huge star for the Minnesota Wild. He's probably a top 20 player in the league. He's the heart and soul of the team. He's the most valuable player by far for that team. So I'm not sure exactly how true this is, but if Minnesota loses Kaprizov, then that would be devastating for them. Like, he's already, he's set to become their franchise player as of now. So if they lose him, it'll be pretty devastating. But on the other hand, if Chicago gets Kaprizov, that's going to be they're going to be a lethal team, because they already have Bedard. They're building a core around him. Like, there's multiple young pieces on that team. And then if they add Kaprizov, imagine Bedard and Kaprizov being on the same line. Bedard is probably going to be a top. He could very easily be the best player in the league during his prime, at least a top 3 player. And then you got Kaprizov, who should still be a top. By that point, Kaprizov will be in his 30s, so we'll see how good he still is. But I think he'll still be a top 30 player, maybe 40. That, having Bedard and Kaprizov together on the first line would be insane during during the prime of the Blackhawks core right now. So even if as soon as Kaprizov gets there, if he does end up going to Chicago, him and Bedard will be a lethal duo. But when Chicago's actually in its prime and all their got multiple key players, multiple elite players and stuff, then that would really be a massive add for them.
So we'll see if it happens. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly how true this is, but it's something Chicago I'm sure really hoping happens. As for Minnesota, it would be devastating for them, like I said, because they have Boldy, they have Faber, they've got Wallsted's coming up, who should be a good goalie, but I don't think any of them are going to be able to replace Kaprizov none of their value to the team equals Kaprizov, or even comes close to Kaprizov. Like, he is truly their heart and soul. So losing him would be a huge loss for Minnesota. But like I said, this is in 2026, so we'll have to wait and see. Next, we had Brian Little retire today from the Winnipeg Jets. As we know, Brian Little's not played in like 4 years. He had the brutal injury in I think 2019 of getting hit. He got hit in the ear by a puck, and it did something to and it just was I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was like an ear injury, and he was never able to return from that. It's always sad when something like this happens, an injury ending a player's career, but I still want to just congratulate him on a good career, because he played 843 games, had 217 goals, 304 assists for 521 points with the Atlanta Thrashers and Winnipeg Jets. He was one of the few players remaining from the Thrashers before they moved to Winnipeg. So congrats to Brian Little on an amazing career, and I wish him the best of luck in retirement. I hope that he can recover. If he's not, I'm not sure exactly how I'm guessing the injury is has some permanent damage, so I'm hoping he can recover as much as possible from this. But you just never want to see this happen when a player's career gets ended from an injury like that. I'm going to go back to playing music now, and I'll see you in a few minutes. So I'm back in my dorm room now, but I realized during my show I forgot to record this part, so I'm just going to talk about here, which is injury news, because there's obviously a lot to talk about there. First, we have Jason Robertson, which he had foot surgery over the summer, so he's expected to miss most of the preseason and training camp. He might miss all of it, and even some of the regular season, but if he does miss some of the regular season, then it won't be much. It should only be a few games, maybe 2 weeks in the maximum, I would think. So nothing to be concerned about for Dallas. It won't hurt them in the long run. They're very deep, and like I said, Robertson won't miss more than a few weeks at the most, so nothing to really worry about for Dallas there. They'll be fine. Next, Artemi Panarin. He suffered an injury against the Islanders the other night, and it was reported that the Rangers were just taking safety precautions there, that it's nothing serious. He'll be fine. He'll probably be back before the preseason ends, so nothing to worry about for the Rangers. He'll be back soon. Next, we have William Nylander, who suffered a head injury last night against the Montreal Canadiens, and Craig Berube said that after the game that he'll be all right. It's nothing to worry about. Once again, he'll be back soon. It doesn't sound like he has a concussion. It doesn't sound like he has a concussion or anything. So there's nothing to worry about there. Once again, but then we have the biggest injury news right now: Drew Doughty, who suffered an ankle injury the other night, and his is more severe. He suffered a fractured ankle. They're checking, I think, right now to make sure nothing else is going on, but he could be out for a few months. It looks like 2 months, maybe 6 weeks minimum. He could be out for probably up to 4 months, I would think. I'm not 100% sure, but that's just based on what they're describing the injury as, it sounds like it's going to be at least a few months. So this is not good news for LA, because he's easily their top defenseman still. He averaged 25 minutes and 48 seconds on a night for time on ice for them, which was number 2 among all defensemen in the league last year. And you look at their defense core without him. You got Vladislav Gavrikov, and Jordan Spence, Mikey Anderson, Kyle Burrows, Joel Edmondson, and Brant Clark. That's not a very their defense core really is going to be missing Doughty if he's not there, or when he's not there. It's not a question of if, but because I know Gavrikov, Spence, Anderson are good defensemen. Clark, they've got high hopes for his future, but I don't think any of them are there yet, or are able to replace Doughty on the blue line. He's going to be they're really going to be missing him the first months of the season. So hopefully for them that he can come back sooner rather than later, maybe 6 weeks into the season, because if he's out until November, December, then I was already questioning the Kings for the playoffs this year. But if Doughty's out long term or misses like more than I'd say 20 games, then that could really be what determines or what really causes the Kings to really miss the playoffs, or that could be what causes the Kings to miss the playoffs if he's not there. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, it's just not looking good for LA's defense right now. And then finally, I wanted to talk about TJ Oshie because, on my Caps, because we've had some updates with him, and he apparently has a back issue and will likely miss the entire season, which I hate to say it, but I think his career is probably over in that case because at his age, at 37 years old, I think he's going to be 38 in November or December, and you just can't miss the whole season at that age. And besides that, he's like he said, when his back flares up, then he can hardly do anything. Like he can't even get up off the floor, he said. So it's gonna be hard for him to continue playing. So I wish him the best. Of course, he's always been one of my favorite players, so it would really suck to see his career end like this. But I want to see him do what's best for him and his family most. So if that's what's best for him and his family, then I do expect him to retire. So thank you, Osh, for everything you've done for this team the past 8 years. Is it 8 or 9 years actually? And thank you for everything you've done for the Caps. And I wish him nothing but the best moving forward, though. And finally, the last thing I have to talk about is Jeremy Swayman's contract situation, because that's obviously been a huge topic right now. And I've not heard anything about the Bruins getting close to a deal, because I just hear a bunch of back and forth. They're not able to agree. Swayman's still not back at camp, and there's been a lot of different updates. There's a lot of speculation that they might be able to get a deal done the next week. There's speculation, of course, that they won't get a deal done until we go into the season. And then Don Sweeney, Bruins GM, said that they might not. He's confident they'll get a deal done by December, the deadline. Which, if they don't have Swayman until December, then that's going to be a huge loss. That's going to be a huge loss for his team. And so I really don't know what's happening. Personally, I would just give him the deal that he wants, because he's not proven that he can play the role of full-time starter, because him and Allmark have been a great tandem the past few years, so they've kind of split. But he's been so good during the time he's played, and watching him play, I think he's going to be able to sustain the good play throughout the season. I think that he is a legit starting goalie at this point, so I think they should just give him the money that he wants. I'd give him I wouldn't give him $10 million. I'd give him $8 to $9 million, 8-year deal. He's 25 now, so that 8-year deal would take him till 33. Just locks him up for the entirety of his prime, pretty much. I understand where the Bruins are coming from with not wanting to give him the long commit to him too much, because he hasn't shown that he can play a full-time role. But I think you just gotta do it. Chances are he's going to live up to expectations, and like I said before, with some of the extensions that we've seen, teams do tend to take a risk on giving a young player that's showing he'll be a star a long-term deal, and it usually works out, ends up being a steal of a contract. And I think the same thing happened with Swayman. He's still relatively young, and I think they should just lock him up long-term, especially after they trade Allmark. You trade Allmark, that pretty much means you're planning on Swayman being your future goalie, or the goalie moving forward. Why would they not want to give him a long-term deal for that? Because even if the deal isn't great at the end, the Bruins probably won't be contending in 8 years anyway. So they might as well just give it to him and try and win now while they still can. While Marchand's still a decent player, Pasta's an elite superstar, McAvoy's a top 10 defenseman, and then Swayman is a top 10 goalie. So they need to try and win now. They can't be waiting, they can't be trying to take a risk or thinking about 8 years from now when they probably won't be contending anyway. They need to make sure that they get Swayman signed, and that they have their core locked in now to go in and win before guys like Marchand start to really regress. I know their centers are still a bit lacking, but I think Lindholm, while he's not an elite, he might not.
even if he's not like a true first line center, he's a really high end second line center, and you put him with Pasta, who's a top 10 player in the league, I think that'll do just fine. So their time to win is clearly now. I think they can. I think they've got a chance of being a contender this year. But if Swayman's not signed, or if they don't have Swayman, then that's really going to hurt them. So we'll have to see what happens. But I would not trust Korpisalo in that this year. He had a pretty bad year last year. I know he was decent before that, but he's really questionable. So I think the Bruins have to get Swayman signed before the season. If not, then shortly into the season, I think they cannot wait until December, because that Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference as a whole is going to be very competitive this year. You got teams like Toronto, Tampa Bay, the defending champs Florida Panthers, Ottawa's looking to take a step up or take a step forward, Buffalo, even maybe Montreal or Detroit. I'm not super high on Detroit. I think they're overrated, but bottom line, this division is so competitive that the Bruins cannot afford to go until December without Swayman. So I think they got to sign him now, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, that's all I have to talk about. So thank you for coming on with me, or if you've been listening, then thank you for listening with me. I know this got a little awkward at times, or whatever. I'm sorry if it did. Maybe I'm sure I got a little difficult to listen to at times, but this is my first show. I'm gonna get better, or I'm hoping to get better. So I'll look at what I can do to improve. But thank you for listening, and I'll be seeing you next week.